Very good evening, community. Welcome to a new session of those horror stories that we know you like so much. Don't forget to subscribe, give us your valuable like, and activate the campaign so you don't miss the next cabinet of horror story. I've driven that route 1,000 times. From San Francisco to Los Angeles. It's a long drive up the California coast, but I know it like the back of my hand. I've been doing it for years, and I've never had a problem. Until tonight. The road is dark, winding through the mountains, and there's nothing out here. No towns, no houses, just trees and asphalt. It's a lonely stretch of road. It's a lonely stretch of road. My truck roars as it moves forward, the lights cutting a path through the darkness. The only sound is the radio playing in the background. I don't pay much attention to it until I start hearing static coming through the speakers. At first, I think it's just interference. There are a lot of places around here where the signal comes and goes. But then I hear something. At first, it's faint, just a whisper of sound that mixes with the static until it starts to become clear. I lean forward in my seat, squinting my eyes as I turn the knob to increase the volume. The static crackles through the speakers, loud and painful, and then I hear it, a voice. It's distorted, but it's definitely a voice. Help. Mark. Trapped. The words send a shiver down my spine, and a glance at the empty passenger seat. Mark was my partner for years, but he disappeared months ago. I still don't know what happened to him. I never found out where he went, or if he's still alive. But now, hearing his name on the radio, I can't help but wonder if he's trying to communicate from wherever he is. I look back at the road, but I can't shake the feeling that something is calling me to stop. The road stretches endlessly in front of me, but I feel like I need to stop. I ease off the gas and pull onto the gravel shoulder. The engine idles as I wait for another transmission, but there's nothing. The voice has faded, and all that's left is static. I sit there in the cab of my truck, staring at the radio, wishing for another message to come through. The night is silent around me. The only sound is the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. It's a lonely place, and I start to wonder if I imagined it all when I see movement out of the corner of my eye. I turn to look in the side mirror, and that's when I see her. A figure emerging from the shadows at the edge of the road. My heart jumps as I realize it's a woman. She steps into the light of my headlights, and now I can see her face clearly. She's beautiful, but she looks like she's been crying for a long time. Her eyes are red and swollen, and tears are streaming down her cheeks. "Jack," she calls softly, her voice trembling. "It's Lisa, Mark's sister." I fling open the door of my cab and jump down onto the gravel. "What are you doing here, Lisa?" I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. "Jack, I know where Mark is," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "He's alive, but we have to hurry." She climbs in behind me, and I slam the door shut. The engine roars to life beneath us, and I put the truck in gear. We pull back onto the road, heading towards the diner. The headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating the empty stretch of road that extends before us. The night is as black as coal, and I can't see anything beyond the reach of my lights. I glanced at Lisa, but she's staring straight ahead. I can't tell if she's scared, determined, or both. She reaches into her pocket again, pulling out another piece of paper. It's folded into a small square, and she unfolds it carefully. I can see that it's been hidden inside the other note I found earlier. Mark must have written on both sides of the paper, and then folded it so that only one side was visible. I look down at the words written on this side in Mark's handwriting. Beware of the shadows. I look up at Lisa, but she doesn't say anything. She just holds the note in her lap, staring at it as if trying to decipher some hidden meaning. I look back at the road in front of me, gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. What does that mean? Is Mark warning us about something, or is he just talking nonsense? I don't know what to think, but as we drive through the darkness, I start to wonder if he might be right. The headlights catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye. Shadows slipping along the edge of the road. At first, I think they're just animals running from my headlights. But then I realize they don't move like any animal I've ever seen. They twist and turn in ways that aren't natural, dancing along the edge of the road as if they're waiting for us to stop. I look back at Lisa, but she doesn't seem to notice anything out of the ordinary. Did you see that? I ask, my voice barely a whisper. Lisa nods, her eyes widening in fear. They're here, Jack. They're the reason Mark's been hiding. What do you mean? I demand, glancing nervously at the shadows. Chapter 2. Lisa swallowed hard, her gaze fixed on the road, but her face was paler than before. They're not human, Jack. I don't know what they are, but they're after Mark. And now, they're after us. The air inside the cab felt thick, as if the darkness itself were trying to seep in and crush us. I accelerated a little more, the roar of the engine breaking the silence of the night. The shadows at the edge of the road seemed to follow us, maintaining their strange dance, always just out of reach of the headlights. Lisa, you have to tell me exactly what's going on, I said, trying to keep my voice steady as my hands trembled on the steering wheel. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath before speaking. Mark discovered something he shouldn't have. He found a place we should never have gone. Those shadows, they're part of that place. And now they're trying to silence anyone who knows about its existence. What place? What are you talking about? Lisa shook her head, as if mentioning the place out loud might summon it. I don't know how to describe it. It's like it's not from this world. A fracture in reality. Mark went there, and he didn't come back the same. My mind raced like a storm. This all sounded absurd, but the twisting, moving shadows just outside the light were no figments of my imagination. I could see them clearly, and they were getting closer. What do we do now? Where are we going? I asked, my voice on the edge of panic. Lisa opened her mouth to reply, but a deafening noise cut through the air. It was a gutter roar, as if 1,000 voices were screaming in unison from the depths of the shadows. The truck's headlights flickered, and for a moment, everything was plunged into complete darkness. When the lights returned, the road in front of us was empty, but the shadows were closer. Now they weren't just dancing at the edge of the road. They were moving as if trying to bridge the distance to us, stretching impossible limbs toward the cab of the truck. Lisa screamed, pointing at something in the road. There is the diner. In the distance, a small, lit-up building appeared like an oasis in the darkness. Without thinking, I turned the wheel towards the parking lot, feeling the weight of the shadows closing in on us. I slammed the truck into park, and we both jumped out, running towards the diner door. Inside, the fluorescent lights flickered, and the place was empty. The tables and chairs seemed to have been abandoned for years, covered in dust and cobwebs. "Is Mark here?" I asked, my voice echoing in desolate space. Lisa nodded, but before she could say anything else, the windows began to darken. Outside, the shadows had surrounded the place, pressing against the glass like a living black tide. "We're trapped," I exclaimed, backing away towards the center of the diner. Lisa pulled the note from her pocket and held it up, as if it were some kind of protection. "Mark said there's a way to stop them, but we have to find him first. He knows how to end this." The floorboards beneath our feet creaked, and a low sound, like the moan of something alive, echoed from the walls. The shadows were beginning to seep through the cracks in the doors and windows, extending like black fingers towards us. "We don't find him soon, Jack will be next." The diner seemed alive, pulsing, as if something breathed within its walls. Shadows slithered across the walls and floor, closing in with a clear intent: to trap us. "We have to move," I shouted, pulling Lisa towards the back of the diner. She stumbled, but didn't let go of the note in her hand. "Mark must be here. Jack, he said he'd wait for me in this place." "I know it." I opened the kitchen door, expecting to find a back exit, but what I saw froze me in place. The room was dark, darker than it should have been, as if the light simply refused to enter. In the center of the floor were marks carved deep into the tiles, a strange circular symbol that seemed to glow with a faint reddish light. "What the hell is this?" I asked, backing away. Lisa stood beside me, her eyes fixed on the symbol. "It's a mark from the place Mark went. He had it everywhere. If it's here, it means they're here too." The air around us grew thick, and a cold chill ran down my spine. Suddenly, I heard a whisper. At first it was low, barely a murmur, but soon it grew louder, surrounding us. "Jack, Lisa." The voice was deep and raspy, as if coming from the depths of a cavern. "Mark?" Lisa asked, taking a step towards the symbol. "Wait." I grabbed her arm. "We don't know what that is." "What?" Before I could do anything else, the floor began to tremble. The tiles around the symbol cracked, and a figure emerged from the darkness. It was Mark, or at least what was left of him. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his eyes were black pits that seemed to absorb the little light in the room. His mouth moved, but the words that came out were not human. They were a chaos of incomprehensible sounds. "Mark," Lisa murmured, taking a step towards him. "It's not him," I said, gripping her tighter. The figure raised a hand, and the shadows surrounding us began to converge, moving towards us like a black river. "Lisa, you shouldn't have come," Mark said, his voice a broken echo. "What did they do to you?" she asked, tears streaming down her cheeks. "They took me, and now..." His voice broke, and his body began to crumble, as if he were made of ash. "They don't let people escape." Before he could finish, a blood-curdling scream filled the air, and the shadows enveloped him completely, dragging him back to the symbol. Lisa screamed, but there was nothing we could do. "We have to get out of here," I shouted, pulling her towards the back door. But when I opened it, we were face to face with the same darkness. It was no longer a normal night. It was a void, an abyss that seemed to extend infinitely. "We're trapped," Lisa murmured, her voice trembling. "No, we're not," I said, searching desperately for anything that could help us. Then I remembered the note. What else did Mark say? Anything about how to stop them? Lisa pulled out the note, now trembling too much to read it. I took it and glanced at it quickly. At the end, in the corner, there was a drawing, the same symbol we had seen in the kitchen, but with something more. A small circle in the center, like a keyhole. "We have to go back to the symbol," I said, knowing it was our only option. "Are you crazy? They'll kill us. If we stay here, they will too," I replied, pulling her back towards the kitchen. Upon arriving, the symbol was still glowing faintly, but now shadows swirled around it like a whirlwind. I could feel their hatred, their "Lisa, you have to trust me," I said, pointing to the circle in the center. "It's here. We have to do something with it." She nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "What if we're wrong?" "I don't know," I replied, watching the shadows close in. "But we have no other choice." Lisa knelt beside the symbol and placed her hands on the small circle. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the light began to intensify, expanding and pushing the shadows back. The screams started again, but this time they were different. They were of pain, of defeat. "Keep going, Lisa," I shouted as the light filled the entire room. With one final burst of energy, the shadows disappeared, leaving only silence. Lisa fell back, panting, as the symbol slowly faded from the floor. "Did we do it?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," I replied, helping her to her feet. "But I think we're safe for now." As we made our way back to the truck, I couldn't help but glance back at the darkness. I could feel that something was still there, watching us, waiting. Back in the truck, the road seemed darker than ever. The headlights barely illuminated a few feet in front of us, as if the night itself were trying to devour the light. Lisa was in the passenger seat, exhausted, but her eyes remained open, fixed on the window, as if expecting something to leap out from the shadows. "Do you think it's over?" she asked in a whisper, her voice barely breaking the silence. "I don't know," I replied, though the feeling in my chest said otherwise. Something was still out there. I could feel it. The engine roared as I accelerated, trying to get as far away from that cursed place as possible. But the farther we went, the stranger the landscape became. The trees on the side of the road seemed to twist, their branches forming impossible shapes, as if trying to reach out and grab us. The air inside the truck grew thick, hard to breathe. That's when I saw something in the rearview mirror. A pair of lights. "Another vehicle?" Lisa asked, noticing my gaze. I shook my head, unable to speak. The lights weren't headlights. They were eyes, two bright yellow orbs moving behind us, getting closer and closer. "Speed up, Jack!" Lisa shouted, clutching the dashboard. I jammed the accelerator, but no matter how much I increased the speed, the lights kept getting closer. Now I could hear a sound, a deep howl, like a roar mixed with the screech of tearing metal. "We can't escape this," I shouted, my voice filled with panic. Lisa pulled the note from her pocket once more. She looked at it desperately, searching for any clue, anything that could help us. That's when she saw something both of us had overlooked. "Jack, there's something else," she said, pointing to a nearly illegible line at the edge of the paper. "It says, 'The circle must be closed.'" "What does that mean?" "I don't know," she replied, looking around frantically. "But there has to be something else we can do." That's when I understood. I looked at the steering wheel, my sweaty hands gripping it tightly. I looked at Lisa. "The circle," I murmured. "What?" "The circle isn't just a symbol," I said, my voice trembling as I turned the truck sharply. "It's literal. We have to go back to the diner." "You're crazy. We can't go back there." "If we don't, we'll die anyway," I replied, turning the truck in a nearly impossible turn and heading back down the road. The yellow lights followed behind us, more furious than ever. Now I could see the shadow of a tall, twisted figure moving among them, chasing us. When we reached the diner, the building was completely dark, but the symbol on the kitchen floor glowed like an open wound in reality. "Run," I shouted, dragging Lisa with me inside. The roar behind us became deafening, and I could feel the air vibrate with a strange energy as we crossed the threshold. Lisa and I knelt beside the symbol, our hands trembling, searching for anything that could activate what Mark had left behind. "The circle must be closed," I shouted, remembering the words. Lisa looked at me, her eyes filled with terror. And then she took my hand. "If this is what we have to do, we'll do it together." The light exploded in a blinding flash, and the roar behind us turned into a scream of indescribable fury. The figure that had been chasing us appeared in the doorway, but it couldn't cross. The shadows around it crumbled like smoke, and for the first time, I saw its face. It was Mark, or what was left of him. "Thank you," he whispered before fading away completely. The symbol dimmed, and with it, the darkness. Lisa and I remained on the floor, panting, speechless. The diner was silent, and for the first time, the night outside seemed normal. "Did we do it?" Lisa asked, breaking the silence. "I think so," I replied, though a part of me wasn't so sure. As we stepped out into the fresh night air, something caught my eye on the ground beside the door. Another piece of paper. I picked it up and read it, my heart stopping for a moment. "The circle never truly closes." I looked up at Lisa, but before I could say anything, the truck's lights began to flicker, and static filled the air once more. The shadows had never really left. They were just waiting. Don't forget to subscribe, give us your valuable like, and activate the campaign so you don't miss the next cabinet of horror story.